Democracy in the United States is dying. Trump is known to admire dictators and is aggressively trying to turn the U.S. into a failed democracy, just like they did in their countries. This video series shares 40 examples of how the United States in the early 21st century is looking like Germany in the early 20th century in some concerning ways. Trump appears to be copying Hitler's playbook, and MAGA is concerningly similar to the early days of the Nazi Party. The first video in this series sets out some important context. The qualifiers it includes, shown here, apply to all of the videos in the series. And now, Part 2, a comparison of how each leader takes over the movement. Number 8. Both leaders wanted to create their own political party, but found it useful to co-opt an existing one instead. During Hitler's push to power, his policies amounting to make Germany great again were referred to as Hitlerism. During Trump's push to power, his policies amounting to make America great again were referred to as Trumpism. Hitler co-opted a political movement called the German Workers' Party, the DAP. Shortly after, they added National Socialists to the front and became the NSDAP, better known today as the Nazi Party. Trump considered formally making a Make America Great Again party. He even filed to protect the term as a trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. But he realized he would actually have more power personally if he didn't create a separate party. Instead, he co-opted the Republican Party so he could force the existing politicians to do his bidding without having to build an entirely new party. Number 9. Both parties' old leaders used the popularity of the new leaders to stay in power themselves. In Germany, the popularity of the Weimar Republic and the Social Democrats were threats to the conservative establishment. At the same time, Hitler had a minority of support, but a strong and vocal minority. So the conservative leadership at the time decided to use Hitler to boost their own level of power. They thought they could control him, put him in a corner, pacify him with a government role, while the grown-ups ran the country. In the United States, the Democrats were considered a threat to the conservative establishment. At the same time, Trump had a minority of support, but a strong and vocal minority. So the conservative leadership at the time decided to use Trump to boost their own level of power. They thought they would control him, put him in a corner, pacify him with a government role, while the grown-ups ran the country. In both cases, the dictators had other ideas, and it ended up poorly for the establishment conservatives that sold their souls to the devil for a little more power. Number 10. Both leaders remade their co-opted party's policies to fit their personal whims. In the early days of the NSDAP, there was a lot of internal disagreement as to what exactly they stood for. Hitler's views ultimately won, as we know, and that's why the NSDAP, under Hitler's control, was mostly fascist, because that's what he believed and propagated. But Hitler was also against capitalism, so the Nazis also contained elements of socialism, even though Hitler was also very anti-communism. If you think this sounds confusing, it's not you. That's what policies made on the whims of a madman look like. In the United States, Republicans used to be all about projecting themselves as the great protectors of women and children, even if the reality of that is debatable. They even had whole collections of conspiracy theories around how the Democrats were supposedly trafficking women and abusing children. That was their very definition of evil. But MAGA Republicans are apparently fine with Trump's numerous sexual assault adjudications, and they're fine with Trump having been friends with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted underage sex trafficker and offender, multiple times over. So much for Republicans protecting women and children. Number 11. Both leaders warped the party they co-opted from being ideals-based to being loyalty-based. As the Nazis became more established, anyone in the military or Hitler Youth or any of the other similar programs had to swear allegiance to Hitler personally. Not to Germany, not to the Constitution, to Adolf Hitler personally. The Nazis made it mandatory for everyone to join one of these groups. They had them for all ages. And it was a requirement of all of them that they made their members commit their life to Hitler. The Nazis, in 1935, passed the Nuremberg Laws, which, among other things, redefined what made a person a German citizen or not. In practice, anyone not supportive of the Nazis, and indeed anyone Hitler didn't like, could be stripped of their German citizenship. This generally also came with a one-way trip to a concentration camp. The Nazis made not supporting them illegal, and treasonous even. Trump demands complete and unwavering commitment to him personally, from his cabinet members and the Republican politicians. To Trump, not to the United States, not to the Constitution, to Trump personally. Being a U.S. Republican now is just a loyalty test. Trump's loyalty tests include requiring his cabinet members to repeat the many false claims that Trump has put out there, even to the point of demeaning themselves before congressional questioning. Trump has signed an executive order trying to strip U.S. citizenship from those he deems unworthy. That's currently being fought in court as unconstitutional. Trump also wants to round up and deport his enemies, including U.S. citizens, just like Hitler did. Number 12. Both leaders encouraged paramilitary groups. Hitler encouraged and benefited from the support of paramilitary groups that carried out violence in support of the Nazis. These organizations came from mostly World War I veterans or those wanting to be associated with veterans. They became known as the SA, the SS, the Gestapo, and similar groups. Trump encouraged and benefited from the support of paramilitary groups that carried out violence in support of him and the MAGA movement. These organizations are often made of veterans or those wanting to be associated with veterans. They include the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and a bunch of other small paramilitary groups that lack a central command structure but operate at local levels. This video discussed similarities between the Nazis and MAGA and how the leader took over the movement. In the next video, we'll look at how the movement and leader gain public interest. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to sharpen the way you might think.